What's up, everybody? Welcome to System Crafters. I'm David Wilson, and today we're back with another Friday stream, our typical Friday live streams where we talk about whatever interesting topic I happen to come up with in the last, 20 minutes before the stream starts. Today you'll see whether I'm actually prepared or not. I think I say that every time, but it always ends up turning out fine. But that's the way that I like to start it, just to be a little bit self-deprecating. But thank you all for being here today. I appreciate seeing a lot of familiar faces here. I'll say hello to Frog Father Dog, Kai or Key, Drashal, Krishna, Pavel, Daigo, Tomas, Ronnie, Anton, Nivas, Solemn Skater, Minican, Niklaus. Let's see who else is here. Nicholas F. Whoa, chat's moving right now. And Edis, MD Arif, Vladislav, Ellis, Nova, Alexander, Purple G, Aniket, GM. Thank you all for being here. Appreciate it. So let's see if I can get this thing going. I literally just sat down and started putting the stream together. That's the reason why I'm late. Well, when I say putting the stream together, I mean getting everything set up to stream. I had to make a coffee first because it's, what time is it? 6 p.m. here in Athens. So I've got to make sure I can stay awake for this. I mean, obviously, it's only 6 p.m., but still, you can't really avoid making an excuse for a drink of coffee. I guess you don't have to have an excuse, but Hello to Vlad, Willem, Nicholas, Ramses, Alexander. All right, so let's see. This week was Thanksgiving for the United States, and maybe people in other parts of the world celebrate it, not so sure, but I celebrated it here in Athens, had a lot of food. It was nice spending time with family and overeating as usual. But today we're back with another stream, which is a lot of fun. Let's see. So let me just jump into the updates. Actually, it went too far. So because it's the sort of beginning of the holidays season, I suppose you could say, around the world, and usually today is what we consider Black Friday in the more capitalist cultures, I guess you could say. I have a sale going on in the System Crafter store. Everything there is 20% off. I have a discount code called Holiday. You can follow this link or just put in the word Holiday at the checkout where it asks you for a discount code, and you'll get 20% off your order. So definitely, if you've been waiting to buy a hoodie or a t-shirt or a coffee cup or hat or whatever else, I can't even see myself. Let me see. Yeah, okay, you can see that. Cool. Then today is a good opportunity. The code is going to be active until next Friday, so we're going to go through like the whole Cyber Week or whatever Amazon calls it. And it's a good little opportunity to grab some stuff there. I'm planning to expand the stuff that we have there next year. I'm going to actually pay a designer to make some different designs for stuff so that there's more like interesting things to wear, like aside from just a logo. So keep a lookout for that. Should be pretty fun. And also, I'm going to bring up again that Emacs Conf 2021 is this weekend, Saturday and Sunday, which is tomorrow and the day after that, because today's Friday. So if you haven't really been paying attention to the lead up to the conference, there's quite a lot of talks by many people that you might recognize. And I think it's going to be a lot of fun and very worthwhile. Many of the talks, excuse me, are going to be pre-recorded. But there's going to be live Q&A either via chat or via video that you can participate in after all the talks. So if you see a talk that you like, it may have a Q&A session attached to it. So go check that out and see if you might be able to ask questions after the talk. For my particular talk, we will have a live Q&A, which is going to be fine because it'll be probably like 11:30 p.m. at night here. So you'll see how tired I'm going to look at the end of that on Sunday. Because I haven't really gone into detail about which talks might be interesting there. I went through the list of the schedule to give you my suggestions on which talks that you might want to pay attention to at the conference. There's quite a few talks here because there's quite a few interesting talks. And I recommend going and looking at the full schedule also because there's probably things that I didn't call out here that you might find interesting. But just, figured out it might be useful to go through a list of potentially interesting talks that you should take a look at. Hey, Tomas. So first of all, the Emacs News highlights, which is basically the summing up of the most important Emacs News topics of the year by Sasha Chua. Definitely highly recommend going to look at that one, if nothing else, because it gives you a great overview of what news you might have missed over time. Also, the next one is by Case Duckworth. I haven't seen Case here today, but Case is known as Duckwork actually that's on GitHub. He's ACDW in the System Crackers IRC and on Reddit. He by this point, he's written a few Emacs packages. He knows quite a lot about Emacs Lisp. He wrote a talk called "The True Frownies Are the Friends We Made Along the Way: An Anecdote of Emacs Malleability," which is basically a talk about how he ended up writing a package off of basically a joke suggestion by Alpha Papa. So that should be a pretty fun talk. GNU's Not Unix, Why Emacs Demonstrates the Unix Philosophy Isn't Always the Only Answer by Daniel Rose, otherwise known as the Catster in the System Crackers community. That one should be pretty interesting because if you've ever really thought about the Unix philosophy, which is basically that you should have a variety of small single-purpose tools that you can compose together to do more complex tasks, and you look at Emacs, which is basically this big blob of mutable state and code that's all mingled together, you kind of think, like, is Emacs completely at odds with the Unix philosophy? And I think that part of what Daniel's talk is going to talk about is, how they sort of blend together and, the pros and cons of both. Or at least that's my understanding from what I read in the description. How Emacs Made Me Appreciate Software Freedom by Protesilaus. That one's going to be obviously a good talk because all of Protesilaus, more philosophical talks or talks about free software are very good. Basically, his journey about learning Emacs and how it sort of changed his perceptions about what software freedom really means, which I think is a good conversation to have. A Day in the Life of a Janitor by Stefan Manier. Basically, Stefan is one of the longtime maintainers of Emacs, and I think this is a talk basically about how you would go into the Emacs code and try to fix some issues. He casts it as if it's like about cleaning up the code, so it might be interesting. I think it's going to be sort of a life coding thing. Org as an executable format by Tom Gillespie. That one sounds pretty interesting. Basically about turning an org mode file with org babel source blocks into like an executable script. Definitely check that out if you want to see some more arcane wizardry with org mode. Creating technical API documentation and presentations using org babel, REST client, and org tree slide by Jan Ipma. That one should be cool if you want to use org mode in a more professional setting, like if you're a programmer and you need to write documentation or like give presentations on technical topics. That might be pretty interesting for you. The use of org mode syntax outside of Emacs. The title of this makes it sound more like it's got something to do with using org in a scope larger than Emacs, but based on the description, it sounds more like it's talking about org syntax. Not sure, but the author of the talk is Carl Voigt. I'm not sure exactly how you pronounce it correctly. And he has a very good blog on Emacs, specifically around productivity with org mode. So definitely worth listening to what he has to say. Budgeting, project monitoring, and invoicing with org mode, which sounds very interesting to me as a person running a business, by Adolfo Villaforita. I think that's the way to pronounce that. And basically how you can effectively run a business and do invoicing for clients and customers using org mode, which that's something I've thought a lot about in the past. I think there's a lot of possibility there. So if you are a business owner and you use Emacs, definitely should take a look at that one. Emacs with Nix to extend your editor with the power of a Lisp browser by Andrea. That really doesn't really need much explanation. If you are interested in the Nix web browser, which is based on Common Lisp, and you want to integrate that with Emacs, definitely check out that talk. Emacs development update by John Weagley. another maintainer of Emacs. I think he may be the lead maintainer, if I'm not mistaken. Very good to take a look at that talk just to sort of get an update on what's going on in the world of Emacs development, because you can't really, it doesn't hurt to know more about what's happening. On the design of text editors by Nicolas Rouget. If you don't know Nicolas' name, he has been putting out a lot of really interesting packages like Nano Emacs and a lot of other visual customizations of Emacs that are very striking and they look very nice. So I think he has some more, I don't know if I would say academic thoughts, but higher level thoughts about text editor design. I think it would be a worthwhile talk to listen to. Don't Write That Package, or How I Learned to Stop Worrying and Love Emacs Devel by Stefan Kangas. And that's a talk basically about, people tend to just go and scratch their own itch with Emacs Lisp, write your own little, snippets of code to solve your own problems. But maybe you should think about bringing some of those things into Emacs itself so that everyone can benefit from it. So this talk is basically to talk about how Stefan came to the conclusion that he should be contributing to Emacs instead of just writing his own little packages. And I think it's a very good perspective to have. So check that one out as well. I think that would be very good if you are at all interested in contributing to Emacs. Extending the Model of Emacs to Other Applications by Laszlo Krajnikovsky. Sorry, I know that I just butchered that. But this is basically about, like, if you take the model of interaction that you have with Emacs, where everything's very highly integrated and you have access to everything at all times, how would you apply that to other applications? And I think it's a very interesting line of thinking, because for power users who are used to the type of flexibility you get with Emacs, often you want that in other applications to use as well. So this talk is going to talk a little bit about that, which I think is great. Emacs Lisp Native Compiler, Current Status and Future Developments by Andrea Corallo. If you have been at all excited about the new improvements to native compilation of Emacs Lisp over the last year, definitely check this talk out, because it's going to give you more background details on that whole effort and what's going to happen in the future, because we already know that it's been merged into the code base for Emacs 28.1, not turned on by default, but at least it's there for people who want to compile it with that flag turned on. But it's good to know what's going to happen next, because what I'm imagining, I don't know yet, but I'm imagining that we're going to hear some news about potentially it being turned on by default in Emacs 29, since that will probably get released next year at some point. So definitely check that talk out if you are interested in faster Emacs. Emacs Application Framework 2021 Update by Matthew Zeng. That's a talk, I don't know if I misspelled his name, about Emacs Application Framework. We really haven't chatted about that on this channel before, but it is a way to integrate more typical graphical elements like a browser or user interface elements into Emacs via the Qt framework. So if you've looked at it at all, or if you've ever been interested in it, definitely check out this talk to sort of see where things are headed next, because I think they've done a lot of work there this year. How to Help Emacs Maintainers by Bastien Guéry, who is the lead maintainer of org mode for a very long time. This is a talk about how you can help the Emacs maintainers. I'm guessing from more like, to help support them on their work maintaining Emacs, because it is a big job. Definitely a good talk to watch if you care about the future of Emacs and the health of the maintainer team. How to Build an Emacs by Furman MF. I actually don't remember what the topic of this talk is, but I added it to this list, so I think you should definitely check it out. I can't give you a synopsis of that one. And the last one, which is literally the last talk of the conference, aside from the wrap up, is my talk, which is Meta X Forever, Why Emacs Will Outlast Text Editor Trends, where we'll basically talk about why I think Emacs is in a very good position to continue to exist and thrive for many, many years, regardless of what the most hyped popular editor is at any given time. RIP the fluttering green screen. Is there a problem with the green screen at the moment? Let's see. Is it shaking again? Maybe, maybe not. So yeah, there's a lot of talks, and there's way more talks than that. These are just the ones that I pulled out as a list. Oh, Don't Write That Package got canceled. Oh, that's not good. Yeah, so I think there's some last minute schedule changes happening. I did see that a couple of talks have been canceled. So go check the schedule on the days of the talk. Ella says, "Who is me?" It's me. So go check the schedule on the days of the talk just to see what the updated schedule is. 'Cause I know that some talk times have already been switched around. Like Silau's talk was supposed to be at the end of the first day, but now it's like toward the middle. So things are moving. keep an eye on that just to make sure that you know the right time to see your talk. And if you miss any talk, don't worry, because they're all going to be up online after the fact, so you'll get to see it anyway. But it's more fun to be there in person, I think. Well, in person in this virtual sense. All right, let me go run back through the chat really quick and see if I missed anything. Nicolaus says, anyone wondering if Geeks can be combined with NixOS? Yes, you can definitely combine Geeks and NixOS because they install their packages and everything in separate places, basically. So so long as you set them up correctly, they can both be used together, side by side. Now, only one of them can be used to manage your system, but at the user level profile sense, you could definitely use both of them at the same time. Let's see. Ellis said, I have a face, whether or not it's familiar, I don't know. Well, it's familiar to me. Yeah, I know. I gotta scan. Ellis says, I'm excited for the Org Rome talk from Zafe. Did I see that one on the list? Let me check that, because I'm not sure if I saw that one. Obviously, that should be pulled in here. I was kind of looking at the list in a hurry today, so I may have missed some stuff. Emacs Conf 2021. Hey, Craig. Hey, Minas Mizar. All right. Let me pull in the schedule. Let's see. Org Rome. I don't see a Rome talk here. I think that... Did it get removed from the schedule? I swear there was a Rome talk at some point, but it must have gotten removed. Who knows why. Yeah, it does seem like the Don't Write That Package talk got canceled. That was not there when I looked at this list earlier today. And also the names of the authors of these talks were not there earlier. So obviously they've been doing some work to update that list pretty frequently. JMC Programmer says, idea about rewriting Emacs in other languages. It's been tried, and it's always basically not really succeeded, or at least not to the extent that it would take over Emacs. So not necessarily worth attempting. Is there like a strike through syntax you can use in org mode? I don't think there is. Let's just do that. Oh. Emacs Research Group Season 0, what we did together with Emacs in 2 hours a week for a year. Wow, okay. Yeah, that's definitely a scientific research type thing, which is cool. Check that one out too. Ilya says, why does it look like he runs the browser in Emacs? Because I do. This is EXWM, and I'm running the Qt browser, and I have each tab being its own independent buffer, basically. All right. Let me scan back a little bit again. Tasmeme says, how am I going to have time to watch all of these? Yeah, that is a problem. If it exists, you could probably do it in Emacs. Probably, yeah. Seek says, I just arrived. What talks are these? These are for the Emacs Conf 2021 that's happening this weekend. Nicholas says, just found System Creditors today. Didn't expect you to have a talk at Emacs Conf. Ah, yeah. Well, I didn't get to do it last year, so I decided to do it this year. Schiamako says, you have some kind of artifact about 2 feet to the right of your head high up. Oh, yes, I do. Thank you. Where is it? There it is. Yeah, I've got the most jank green screen setup right now because I'm in a temporary location here. Oh, XXX with pluses around it. Strike through. Wow. Okay. That's... Oh, it's just plus signs. Like that. Oh, that's great. Okay. Let's do this. That's a kind of a... Like, that syntax just seems like it would be problematic. But it worked. That's great. Purple G says living in Emacs. Yeah, that's the idea. Okay. Drashal, you should have just told me that. Thank you, Seek. Okay, so that's the synopsis I have of the talks you might want to check out at Emacs Conf 2021 this weekend. Definitely take a look at those if you are interested in hearing more about Emacs, as I imagine many of you are, because you're here because of Emacs. So let's talk about the actual topic for today. Once again, I have to come up with a sort of clickbaity headline for this, but it is true. I'm rewriting my configuration again. I don't know exactly how extensive the rewrite is going to be, but there's a lot of stuff that I feel like just needs to be cleaned up or rethought, especially in the context of some plans that I have for personal projects that I've been for next year, basically. And I've been thinking a lot about what changes I need to make to my configuration, also to my streaming setup to enable me to do these things. So what we're going to do today is just sort of answer a couple of these questions and just write down some thoughts that I have. And I also want to hear your feedback as well, because probably many of you have looked at my configuration before, and I'm kind of interested in feedback as people who have tried to read it or try to take things from it to see if maybe there's ways that I can improve how it's laid out to make it easier to learn from, basically. So, first of all, what are my plans and how do they affect how I use my computers? Well, I mean, first of all, I'm still going to be making a bunch of videos and streams for system crafters, and the setup that I have for that works really well. I mean, you've seen probably over 100 videos and assorted streams since last year, where I'm basically using EXWM and presenting directly inside of Emacs using EXWM. And that all works great because we're focused mainly on just things that are happening inside of Emacs or inside of programs that you're running on your computer. But I have a different set of projects that I'm going to start focusing on next year on a separate YouTube channel. I don't really have the channel name figured out yet, but I'm going to be writing a bunch of tools for creation of music and videos and graphics and just a bunch of creative stuff, basically, all from scratch. So I'm going to go really low level. I'm actually going to write a lot of this stuff with the C programming language. I'm also going to write some sort of scripting language that's based on either Lisp or Scheme. And it's going to be like a long-term project. Like if you see the list of the things I'm trying to do, it's ambitious enough that it's going to take me a few years to get anywhere close to what I have in mind. But the point is to be able to show the whole process of writing everything from the ground up from scratch. And the reason why I say that I might actually need to change the way I do some of this stuff, or at least improve my configuration, improve the way that I make videos and stream, is that there's going to be other components of things that come into play, like Windows for graphical applications, or music software, or video editing software. A lot of different things that may have to show up that don't really work so well in the context of EXWM. So I've got to come up with a way where I can have sort of like multiple desktop environment configurations, one for doing System Crafters videos with the EXWM setup, because it is effective for how I present things in Emacs, but also to have a more flexible setup with a different window manager for things I need to do that requires a little bit more flexibility. So let's talk about that for a second. Let's see. Joao says, what happened? My message disappeared. Sometimes when you put a message in with links, it just eats it immediately. So YouTube's very, very picky about links. Hey, Benoit. Vit Fearinger says Xmonad. I'm not sure I'll use Xmonad. All right. So let's see. Charles says, would love to see your take on the most vanilla Emacs possible and to get as close as to your daily driver usability, keep package bloat to a minimum. I do want to do something like that for sure. I need to put that into the schedule for System Crafters for next year, because it's one of the things, actually probably need to start working on that in tandem with some of the things I'm talking about here, because it does actually line up a little bit. Let's see. Kai says I use DWM. No, Arya, not too late. Nicholas says, that sounds exciting. What made you take it up? What do you want to do different from existing tools? Well, what made me want to take it up is that I just really enjoy making music and making videos and graphics and all kinds of stuff. And I want to explore that side of my skill set, my creativity, and also do some really gnarly low-level programming to enable all of it. And why I want to use my own tools as opposed to existing tools is because I want to make it more like hacker-driven. So, you know, Emacs gives you the ability to be very customizable because it gives you the raw elements to use to build something up. And I basically want to do the same thing, but with other types of software. So that's basically what I'm going to do. Bitfinger says, start by building a window manager. Nah, I mean, we'll see. We'll see. I don't think I'm going to build a window manager, but I might switch to one that is a little bit more hackable. Well, okay, I'm not going to say a little bit more hackable because EXWM obviously is very hackable, but let's say similarly hackable. Arya says you switched to Zero Dark. Nope, still using Pale Night. So let's see. So let me just put one thing here. So starting a new channel to focus on building audio visual tools from scratch and making things with them. What else? How do they affect how I use my computer? So, Joel, we were just talking about StumpWM last week. I've tried setting up StumpWM a few times, and it's great. I just have a couple of limitations. Need to have multiple configurations or let's say multiple desktop environment configurations for different use cases. All right, so let me just break this out a little bit more. EXWM for system, crafters, videos, streams. Another window manager for, I don't know what we would call that. the AV tool hacking streams. Potentially. I mean, we could still do EXWM. However, I think that I want to try something else because obviously, you get comfortable with a particular configuration for a while, but sometimes you want to change things up a little bit to freshen it up. And I think I want to have a little bit of a different visual style for the other channels so that it doesn't all just look like system crafters. So I think I'm going to tweak things a bit. Hi, Vitaly. You're not too late. Let's see. Krishna says, how about a Wayland CHA? A window manager? I don't want to mess with Wayland because it makes things more complicated. So as far as like window manager is concerned, I mean, probably it would be something along the lines of either DWM, i3, StumpWM, potentially Guile WM, which is not really a full-fledged window manager, but I might be able to take it and do things with it. I don't know. I'll have to experiment a little bit. Trying to think if there was another one that I was thinking about. That may be the set that I'm going to look at for now. Xmonad, yeah, I'm not as interested because, Haskell's got a lot of dependencies to install. I had to deal with that whenever I was updating my Geek system the other day. Thokal says, I'm going to keep doing this channel. Yeah, of course. That's part of what we're talking about here is that I need to have different configurations for the different channels so that they have their own sort of unique vibe. Ellis, I just got done talking about how I'm going to be writing a whole bunch of tools in C. I'm definitely not scared of C. With DWM, I would probably start with my own fork and work from there. I'm highly considering it. Vitfinger says, can EXWM not do floating windows? Yes, it can do floating windows, but it gets a little bit fidgety, I think. I could probably do something to get around that, but I feel like maybe it's a time to just experiment with a different window manager a bit to get some perspective. Minas Mazar says awesome WM. It's definitely a possibility, but I feel like it's got more than I need, if that sounds like it makes sense. I need something more minimal, but still not so tied to Emacs. Let me tell you another reason why I need to use something other than EXWM, because I don't want something in Emacs to cause problems for the entire stream when I'm doing other stuff, hacking on music software or whatever, because you need that to be stable so that you don't get some crazy audio glitches and whatnot, and I don't want things to crash. So I'll stay away from that, I think. Fade says, have you looked at any of the live programming environments like Fluxus or Extempore? Yeah, of course. But I would rather do things myself, just because it's going to be more fun. Christian says, what is the difference between Quelpa and straight.el? If you go look at the straight.el README, there is going to be an explanation of what the differences are, and also for any other package manager. So don't... I lost my train of thought. Oh, yeah. Just go check out the straight.el README, and it will give you a rundown. I have not used Quelpa, so I'm not an expert, and I can't really tell you. Charles Bronson says, C is probably your preference, but I think C++ gives better abstraction. I think it also gives a lot more complication, but that's my personal opinion. I prefer to have things be a lot more simple. So the thing is, I know that using C and not C++, you have to do a lot of things yourself, but that's kind of the point. So, you know, I am looking to do a lot of things myself. I mean, it's going to be fun. It's going to be hard, but it's going to be a lot of fun, I think. Pavel says, Stump WM crashed on Fundrak's stream yesterday, so we had to pull the plug to end the stream. I didn't know that Fundrak was streaming. That's cool. I need to catch up on the Discord, apparently. Edda says, DWM is pretty bare bones, right? It could be easier to add stuff there if it's not much config in the first place, less things to go conflict and go wrong. Yes, absolutely. And that's one of the reasons why I'm considering it. I mean, two main reasons are, one, it's written in C, so it's another opportunity to mess with some C code. And then also it's simple and straightforward. So it's been around forever and it's probably pretty stable. So there's three reasons. Fade says C++ is more difficult to bind to other languages. Yeah, that's another big reason. Because of the way that the C++ methods get mangled, you can't easily expose those. Yeah, you can do like C exports or whatever, but I would rather just have plain C. It's going to be much easier to integrate with like a scheme implementation or anything like that. So, Alexander, what was Alexander saying? Yeah, Alexander, we got that one before. Thanks. OOP was a mistake. OOP was an important paradigm. I guess still is an important paradigm because it is how people's brains usually work. You think in terms of objects and actions that are attached to objects and data that's stored in objects. So it's an effective paradigm for people writing code, but it also is not necessarily the best paradigm for writing code, in my opinion. Arnav says, need more geeks, perhaps how to set up shell with Rust toolchain. Yeah, I'm going to make more geeks videos next year for sure. Yeah, Alejandro, not too late. Everybody thinks they're too late, but I mean, if the stream is still running, then you're not too late. Edda says, I use stock Pop OS. I know almost nothing about window managers. There's nothing wrong with that. I mean, sometimes you have to use the built-in stuff for a while before you realize what you want to change. So Vitali says, DWM has only one problem. It's only for X11. Wayland is the future. I just forget about tearing and sway WM. Yes. Well, I am not that worried about it, using it in the short term. I mean, Wayland certainly can be considered the future, but I don't think X is going to go away anytime soon. One thing I forgot to mention is that I intend to use Pipewire for all the AV stuff that I'm going to do. So that may be a reason to try to use Wayland also, because I think that they are more aligned, Pipewire and Wayland. So DWL is DWM for Wayland. Okay, so there is a possibility there. Charles Bronson says, I'm in love with C++ templates, allows you to do some cool magic, but I totally understand why you like C. Templates are good, but they also complicate things and they slow down compilation quite a lot. So Ellis says Pipewire works fine in X. Yeah, I know. I haven't actually installed it yet, but I've been looking at the APIs, and it looks pretty good as far as like being a platform to build on for what I want to do. So I'm really excited to start using it. Christian says, I prefer River over DWL as a DWM clone. I didn't know about River. That's cool. Vitfiringer says, where is this urge to do creative stuff coming from? It's coming from the fact that I am also a musician and I write music, and I haven't really been focusing on that for a long time because I've been focusing too much on programming. So now I'm going to try to blend the two and take all of my skill sets and my interest areas and put them into one major project that could last me for a while. And mainly because I see it as all one big creative work. If you want to do the ultimate in creativity, you need to take things from all the places that you're interested in and try to put them together somehow. And that's basically what I'm trying to do. Ella says, Pipewire works better with Wayland in that it sits nicely with a permissions model. Yeah, that's one of the big things is that if you want to move to something like Wayland and you want to do things like, screen capturing and some other cool, nifty video tricks, then Pipewire is definitely the place to be. Alexander says, do you use any backup versioning solutions for your whole operating system and files? No. And that is probably the most dangerous thing in my computing life, is that I do not back stuff up very frequently. Many things are stored on like GitHub or on the cloud per se. But yeah, there's always a risk that I could just, things could blow up. A lot of my most important things are being synced between machines with SyncThing, but it's not really a backup solution. Alejandro says, DWM is very fast and lightweight, but BSPWM has better response with some GUI applications. I should put that in a list because I know that BSP is good. And I guess there's also Herbsluft, but I haven't really looked at that one very much. I know people like it. Snapper and BTRFS Timeshift 2. Yeah, probably there's some stuff I should start trying to use. I just haven't gotten around to it yet. Diogo says, I'm using KDE with the Cronkite tiling system. Yeah, KDE is pretty heavy. I try to stay away from that. All right, so what else do I need to say about this one? What are my plans and how do they affect how I use my computer? Oh, so I'm going to have, at some point, start trying to come up with a multi-PC streaming setup. Mainly because I need a way to have one computer that I'm working on that's separate from the actual streaming process that's happening, so that if anything goes wrong with the computer that I'm doing presentations on, the stream will still keep going. Because I don't really want to have, like, there's been a couple times where I've done something critical and it broke the stream, and I don't want that to happen again. Nicholas F says, KDE is not a system crafters kind of tool, very different philosophies. I mean, there's nothing wrong with using KDE if you like it, because it has a lot of power in its own way, but it's not the kind of thing that I would personally use. But like I said, one part of the philosophy of this channel is use whatever tools you like and that work for you, and don't let anybody bully you about what you use. If I say I don't like KDE, that doesn't mean don't use KDE. It just means that I personally don't like it. If anybody likes it, they should use it. Vitaly says, what about Xmonad with Haskell? Not so interested. I know it's good, but I don't really want to pull Haskell into the whole toolchain. Awesome is not in the list. Yeah, Awesome has more features than I want. I want less features, but customization. Fade says, I've been thinking about binding the Enlightenment Foundation libraries to Common Lisp. I also saw that you said something else up here that I missed about Clasp. Clasp Common Lisp was created from scratch to make it easier to bind to C++ libraries. Yeah, that sounds like a headache. Qtile, not so interested in Qtile. I know that people like it and have been using it a lot, but I'm not so interested at the moment. Zos the Goat Herd says, which music production tools do you use now? I've been switching around for years, bouncing through a lot of different things. Most recently, I've been trying to use Ardor on Linux, and I tried using, what's it called? Z-Rhythm a little bit, but it's still pretty early and it was crashing a little bit for me. And then before that, I was using Bitwig and Ableton and Reaper and what's it called? Is it Logic Pro on Mac? A little bit of Cubase. So I've used a bunch of different DAWs, Fruity Loops, use a lot of different stuff, and I have thoughts on how I would do things. Ella says Reaper is great. Yeah, Reaper is good. It's super high performance. I don't think it works on Linux though, does it? I've recorded a few songs with Reaper. Let's see. Gavin says I'm happy to see Stump on the list. Yeah, well, I mean, it's definitely an option. Aria says, why don't you try DWM? I'm going to. It's on the list here. Skiamako says, have you used LMMS on Linux? Yeah, I've used it. Wasn't really for me. Reaper works on Linux now? That's great. I'll have to check that out. It's solid software for sure. If you don't know about Reaper, Reaper was written by the same person who created Winamp way back in the 90s. So, long history. Zos says, I used to play around with Pure Data and Super Collider. Yeah, Pure Data is cool stuff. Basically having little modules you can hook together. Super Collider is also interesting. I've thought a lot of times about making like a language front end on top of Super Collider. But yeah, I think it's not interesting enough for me. I want to go lower in the stack. Gavin says, what did you think of Bitwig? Bitwig's awesome. As far as being a competitor to Ableton, which is probably its main competition, I found it to be very flexible, really high quality synths built in. If I was going to be writing music on Windows, I would still be using Bitwig, I think, because there's a lot of cool stuff in there. Let's see. Let me drop that back here. So what else? Multi-PC streaming set up to ensure that nothing I do kills the stream. And what else? How do they affect how I use my computers? Yeah, I wonder if focusing on music and video production at a more high performance level, I mean, at some point it's going to have to get to that level. If I'm going to have to use some other Linux distribution as my base because of the better driver support for various things like, let's say, NVIDIA chipsets or AMD or whatever, I don't want to have to do that, and I'm hoping that by learning more about Geeks, I'll be able to hack everything in the ways that will help me to get the setup I need. But if I can't do that, I may have to resort to a different distro for one of my systems. So I'm going to avoid that as much as possible. So maybe use a different Linux distribution for the media machine. Gavin says, my dad uses Ableton and said he would consider Linux if Ableton was an option, but he hasn't used Bitwig. Yeah, they really should put Ableton on Linux, because the people who make Ableton are, pretty independent-minded, and I think I know it's hard to add another OS to your support matrix because it just adds a whole another set of headaches, especially because Linux distros throw a whole new wrench in the works because everybody has different versions of libc or whatever. But it would be awesome if you had Ableton and Bitwig on Linux. Ashraz says, good old Nullsoft and Insys is still a godsend. Ashraz, you said you weren't going to be here, but I'm glad to see you. Yeah, Nullsoft was cool way back in the day. Another company that was a big inspiration to me, that for something about like those small hacker companies in the 90s, like id Software or Nullsoft, I'm sure other ones will come to mind. It's very inspiring to me whenever I was younger. So, a lot of what I'm doing is kind of replicating that in my own way. Ashraz says, you also plan to rewrite your Emacs config or mostly focus on the system config? Yeah, I need to talk about that too. Probably in this next section. Zoe says, Ableton has got me to switch to using Linux as a synthesis platform and OS X for composition. Interesting. So how do you do that? Charles Bronson says, I think you can use FFmpeg to record stuff like Luke Smith is using for streaming. Yeah, you can definitely use FFmpeg. I actually experimented with that a little bit before I started using OBS. Ellis says, Fedora comes with Pipewire and Wayland by default. Alexander says, do you have any specific distros in mind? Probably Arc or Arch whichever one, however you pronounce it, because obviously it's got the most widest coverage of drivers and software and whatnot. But it is potentially a little bit less stable. So maybe trying BSD. I think that would be too far off the path. I would like to try BSD for sure because it seems interesting, but I wouldn't want to build a new system on top of it. Let's see. Unfa does a great job with his Linux audio streams. Yeah, I'm a fan of Unfa. That's a good point, actually. I should talk to him when I start doing this stuff because there may be some synchronicity there. I actually sponsor Unfa on Patreon. So let's see. Anything else to say in this setup? Maybe use a different Linux distribution, multi-PC streaming setup. Keep getting notifications about the stream quality, so let me know if you got any issues with stream quality. I'm trying to think if there's anything else that I wanted to say on that point. I don't think so. If I think about it, I'll come back to it. All right, so cleaning up and presenting my configuration more effectively. So there's a couple things here related to what Ashraz asked that I wanted to bring up. So I've had a kind of plan in mind for a while to take some of my configuration and move it into a more stable, reusable config that other people could make use of. I need to come up with a better name for it. I've been calling it bare Emacs, like BARE, like sort of like, not really having a whole lot, or exposed, I guess you could say. And the idea being that the most basic configuration is very, very vanilla and nothing else in it. It just sort of like sets things up as a good foundation. And then there will be other modules that you could pull in either from the base config or from just like Git repositories using straight.el. So I'm considering trying to get back into that effort because I see a lot of people trying to build on top of Emacs from scratch configuration, and that wasn't really meant to be used as a basis for someone's config. It's more meant to be an inspiration and a place where you can sort of copy and paste snippets and not really take the whole repo and just use that as a config. So I believe that I want to do something like a bare Emacs with a bear. Yeah. I would like to do a base config, something that I can use as my own basis and other people can contribute to. I mean, obviously you could say use Doom Emacs, but Doom is very opinionated, and I would like to step a little bit back from being very opinionated and very heavyweight. It's not heavyweight, I guess. I mean, you still have the ability to pull in different features, but I kind of want to do something a little bit different. So maybe I'll do that as a way to take some of the stuff out of my personal Emacs config and put it into a more shared location so that the things that you see in my configuration are actually a lot less because I don't have to spend a lot of time configuring like setup of packages, like let's say org mode or org roam. I can just sort of add the extra stuff that I need for my framework. The UEF micro Emacs framework, that sounds pretty cool. Ella says my personal config is called Pong Emacs. That's cool. Vitaly says I use Chemois for my dot files. It supports templates with different hosts. Yeah, Chemois is pretty good. But once again, I go in a different direction. So maybe setting up a shared base configuration. Bare Emacs needs a better name, and build on that. I still need to think about how I would do that effectively, though. Another thing would be to invest more in converting to Geeks Home, and this one is a little bit. The more I think about it, the more I'm unsure whether it's the best thing to do. I think it makes a lot of sense in a lot of ways, and I'm very interested in experimenting with it more. But then at the same time, I'm thinking the more you go away from raw configuration files for programs, the more you might run into trouble because you've got an extra layer between you and the configuration of a program you're trying to use. So you have to depend on the person who's maintaining the home service for the app that you use to have stuff in there for you to like configure certain things. if you use Geeks Home, you kind of need to get your hands dirty and help contribute to whatever packages you're using, or write them yourself. Writing them yourself is definitely doable, but it's time consuming, especially if you want to configure a lot of certain programs. Let's say Polybar. If you wanted to configure Polybar using Geeks Home and not using a plain configuration file, you would have to write a lot of code to express a lot of the same options, especially for setting up different sections of the bar and whatnot in Scheme. And I don't know how beneficial that is in the long term. I mean, it's nice that you can generate the configuration file from the Scheme code and then make it immutable, so that if you make any change to your configuration, you create a new generation and a new copy of that file. But I don't know how far is like the limit for how you should go on doing that. So there may be a middle ground where you could have local sort of templated copies of your config, sort of like where Vitaly mentioned Chez Moi earlier. You have like a templated config file where some things can be configured, or some variables can be changed per system. But that seems to slightly defeat the purpose of Geeks Home. But I think there may be one way you could do it where it would sort of get the same benefits from Geeks Home while still allowing you to edit a regular config file. So I don't know. I'm interested in converting more things to Geeks Home, because I think some stuff does make a lot of sense. Let's say running your user level services, like the GPG agent for authentication. It makes sense to have that be a Geeks Home service, but some applications may not work so well that way. On the flip side, if you do a hybrid where you have Geeks Home for certain things and then normal configuration files that you use symbolic links for, then you're sort of confusing the whole situation. So I think you kind of have to go one way or the other. MiniKN says you could just use the config file in Geeks Home. That's how Andrew does an RDE with Sway, for example. Okay, well, I trust what MiniKN is saying, because I know he's been using Geeks Home recently and talking to Andrew about it. So if that's something you've seen as a pattern, then that's good. The more advanced thing on that level is configuring Emacs with Geeks Home, because at some point you're going to have to deal with your Emacs configuration with Geeks Home somehow. And the problem I see with that is that I use Emacs on more than just Linux machines or on Geeks machines. I use it on Windows sometimes. I use it on macOS rarely, but still sometimes. And if you don't have Geeks on those machines, then you can't apply your Emacs configuration correctly unless you come up with some hybrid approach where the same Emacs configuration can be used both symlinked somehow on an OS that does not support Geeks, as well as being pulled in through your Geeks Home config on a Geeks machine, or at least a machine where you have Geeks Home available. So, however, try to find the balance between Geeks Home and normal config files. So it is something I want to try to dial in a little bit. I think that Geeks Home could make it so that my config has less stuff in it, because some of that work is moved off to configuration modules for Geeks Home, but I don't know how much it really... I don't know how much is going to complicate things more than necessary. Pavel says, yeah, Scheme as a source for the config file seems like an unnecessary abstraction level. Yeah, it is a little bit... I mean, it's very fidgety in the sense that, if you really want to hack around on some Scheme, it's a great way to do that. But, sometimes you got to think if there's better ways to spend your time. Now, after saying all that, I'll go back and say Geeks Home is great, and I think it's very useful, and I'm going to continue to use it. It's just I'm trying to find the right balance for me. Alejandro says, port Geeks Home to Windows and Mac OS. Yeah, I'm not going to bother doing that. Benoit says Nix supports Mac OS. Yes, it does. That is one point for Nix OS, or the Nix package manager at least. Charles says, I was forced into Windows at work. I've been crafting config for that for some time. Windows feels so limited. Yeah, definitely. It's not as nice to use Windows as a hacker OS, except for with WSL, and it's improving things a lot on that point, but I still haven't got a good WSL 2 configuration set up yet. All right. So I'm trying to think if there's anything else. Oh, yeah. So having a better, or creating a better configuration website and presentation. So this is something that I want to do. I've been thinking about for a while. I did a couple streams talking about, another strategy I had in mind for this, but I still haven't really landed on the perfect model yet. But basically the idea is that I have this configuration website called config.davidwill.com, which is a rendering of my org-based configuration, my literate config with org mode. Let's see if it fixes the... Come on. Why is it taking so long to load? There we go. So, I'm able to generate a nice looking website from my configuration, which is great. You can go look at my Emacs config there and see the latest state of that, I think. Does it have setup.el? This may be out of date, actually. I haven't pushed to source hut in a while. But it's nice to have this, but I kind of feel like, for one, I'm seeing the limitations of using org as a configuration, a way to store your configuration, just because it's, you have to tangle your configuration files. You have to have a way to do that at the right time. There's various different approaches, but they all have their drawbacks. And I keep yearning for a situation where I'm just writing Emacs Lisp code directly and not dealing with org source blocks. But if I do that, then I have to find a way to generate a website from it. So, let's see, what was it? Literate programming coffee script. Let me see if this is actually where I had seen this first. But there is people were generating websites either out of CoffeeScript or Ruby or something way back in like the earlier 2000 years. I know that sounds weird to say way back, but basically they generated a website where you have the code on the right hand side of the page and the rendered text of the comments on the left hand side, sort of annotating the code as you go down. I would like to do something like that, but it would require writing a whole custom solution, and I don't know if I want to waste my time doing that. So it would be nice to have a way to have normal source files that I could generate a nice looking configuration site from, and I would be willing to use something like off the shelf for that, or at least something that someone's already made. So if you have any suggestions on something for that, I would certainly take a look. But yeah, I don't know. Like, I like using org Babel, but I would like to experiment with something different because I just, I get annoyed by having to deal with having to tangle my configuration files every time I sync from a remote repository. Even if you can automate a lot of it, it's still not ideal. And especially if I go more into using Geeks Home and writing scheme code, I don't want to put all that scheme code into org files. So I'm sort of shifting away from that mindset. Also, Geeks Home gives me the ability to do some of that per system configuration like I've been doing with my org files. And it makes me wonder if I should just depend on Geeks Home for that part of things and not do it in org mode anymore like I had been doing it, because it's kind of complicated the way that I do that. So not sure yet what I want to do or what specifically I want to do about it, but I want to change something relating to that, and it's going to be a big part of the rewrite, because if I rewrite everything or rewrite a lot of my configuration, I'm going to want to take out probably a lot of the org stuff. However, I still want to have a nice website that has, excuse me, formatted text. Like I can bold some things, put links in the text, etc., to end up with something like what I have here, just without everything being stored in org files to begin with. Ellis says, would be useful video going over how Tclosor deploys his config through CI. Yeah, I should look at that. I know that people have mentioned it a few times, but I haven't actually looked at how he does it yet. Let's see. Benoit says Lisp is data. It could be used to generate documentation. Yeah, you could definitely do that, but not all my configuration files are going to be Lisp. Like, let's say, excuse me. What am I thinking of? Polybar. Yeah. Etc. Andrew says, what if an org file with Lisp code blocks could be your init file directly, no tangling? Well, you can do that with that org Babel load or something like that. There's a way that you can load up an org file. I used to do that in the past, but it makes startup really slow, and I just don't want to do that. Let's see, some conversation about jack and pipewire. So pipewire is pretty interesting because it can pretend to be jack and it can pretend to be pulse audio. I think it's very flexible and also has a seemingly better design. So I'm really looking forward to playing around with that some, because I think it could be a very good way to bring together a lot of different tools. Ellis says, org babel load file, it's so slow. Yeah, definitely. It is very slow. Whenever I used to use that for loading my config, it would take about like 15 seconds to start Emacs at least. Too slow. And even now, I'm not doing enough to make my init fast. I defer loading a lot of packages, but I'm not actually bytecode compiling my my init file, which I think would make things a lot faster if I did it, but I don't do that. Shabam says there's a Lua program that converts ME Lua annotated code to markdown file, but I forget the name. Yeah, something like that would probably be the right approach. If you could take a code file and then generate an org file from it and then use that to generate a website, it would work. And that is what I was trying to do in the stream maybe 2 months ago, where I was talking about inverse literate configurations. That's still a strategy that I'm considering. Alejandro says you could import your init.el into an org document to generate HTML. Yeah, basically the same thing. Shabam says the program is used to generate documentation for mini.nvim. Cool. That's good to know. Alejandro says even fragments of the source. Well, there actually is a feature for that in org babel where you can, is it called untangle? Was it? Or detangle? Yeah, org babel detangle. So you can have source files that were generated from org babel, and then you can go edit the source files directly and then run org babel detangle and pull them back into the org file. So that's one option, but I think it requires having special comments in those output files so that org knows where to put them in the original file. So not sure if it's ideal. Gavin says, I've been using Pipewire for about 6 months. It's been pretty good, especially if you use Bluetooth headsets. The issues I have with it are not remembering what I want the default output to be. That's interesting. I would think they should be able to do that pretty well, but maybe they just haven't written that part of the code yet. Yeah, Ellis says, Jumashu has a package for that called L2org. Does it work with other file formats? I did look at that. Benoit says, this is what JavaDoc does with Java code. Doxygen, I think, does this too. Yeah, I mean, it's pretty common for programming languages that have structured comments around classes and methods and structure types and whatnot, but it's a little bit different with configuration files. You have to have a more general approach for that can pull normal comments, I think. Let's see. Alejandro says, I was thinking more in keeping your config directly in Emacs Lisp, but generate your site with includes, which is pretty fast. Maybe so. Hey, Glenn. Sorry I didn't reply to your messages, Glenn. I've been busy looking for houses the last few days. Okay, so I think that's enough for that particular section. So improving the quality of streams and videos. So I've been thinking a lot about this. I mean, I've been doing, I would say, fairly well with the quality of videos in System Crafters for the last year. Things have sort of gradually improved over time, how I put things together and, how certain things look. But I feel like I could do a lot more in terms of, let's say, visual demonstrations with graphics, maybe like having a more interesting screen layout. So, if you watch a lot of different streamers, you'll see, people have different ways of organizing things on their screen and, some other information that is useful for, people who are watching stream, like the number of viewers or whatever. Or the chat. Like the way I do chat is kind of janky right now because I'm just pulling up a window on the screen, but it'd be nice if I had like a chat overlay instead so I could use my whole screen space for what I was doing. And, maybe making it a little bit more styled in a sense. I don't really have a good example of what I'm talking about, but one thing I sort of have in mind is like if I had a machine, like let's say my X1 Nano computer that does not have a 16:9 display, it would be nice if my stream could still adjust to that by having that screen take up the actual resolution space, but then also have some like, you know, like a background around the sides, or maybe like have things overlaid differently. So you have my talking head in the corner, and then the screen itself be, you know, outlined, you know, it just make things look a little bit better. There's a lot I could do with that. I just haven't had time to play around with OBS to set it up, but it is something I want to spend time on, especially if I'm going to be doing another channel which will have its own sort of visual identity in a sense. I need to think about how I can do these things better. So that's kind of a big thing, you know, experiment with OBS. Another thing about OBS that is a little bit annoying is it's really hard to sync the configuration for OBS across machines. Luckily, all of it is in text form. I think it's all JSON files basically, but they aren't very easy to diff, especially now that they've started to uglify the files where they just put everything on a single line, even though it's like, you know, big data structures in there. You know, having multiple machines that I want to be able to run streaming software on is a bit of a headache. So that's another reason for having one dedicated streaming machine. But there are times like this right now where I have to go somewhere and I don't have my full setup and I need to be able to stream. So I guess what I'm trying to say is OBS is really, really good software, but I'm starting to see the limitations of it. And another thing that I'm thinking about writing myself is my own custom streaming software. So we'll see how that goes. I don't know if that's going to work or not, but that's something to add to the list of possible projects for the next channel. And the idea would be that I would have my own sort of language, like sort of like a scheme or list-based configuration language for describing the layout of everything on the stream, and also transitions between different scenes or different, you know, layouts basically on the active running stream. That way you could write it in code and have full control over the configuration. You would know exactly what's in there because you wrote it. And then you won't have to worry about some weird configuration file format that's hard to check into source control. Yes, another rabbit hole for sure. But that's my life, you know. I think I'm not happy unless I have a rabbit hole to get lost in. So we're gonna see how well I can do that with this other channel, especially if I have enough time to actually work on these things on that channel. But you know, part of moving to a different country is to try to have a different quality of life, and I'm hoping that some of that time that I have can be spent on this kind of thing. Let's see. Charles says, I guess we all come here for your content. Visuals are not really important. I would watch you in 320p black and white. Well, thank you. But for me, the visual component is a big part of what I enjoy, making things look good. And I want to take it to the next level. So, you know, like it's been very basic, you know, just recording things in one shot, which works well for me. And the setup that I have has been working well for me. But I would like to you know, increase the quality of things. You know, all content creators at some point get sort of bored with what they have, and they want to kind of increase the quality of things. So that's what I'm gonna be looking into with part of my time this year. Benoit says, I'm not saying it's bad. I keep opening them too. Yeah, I know. You're the kind of person who keeps tearing down parts of your house so you can rebuild them, which I greatly respect. Let's see. What else? Improving the quality of streams and videos. Let's see. More/better music. I'm sure all of you are very tired of hearing the same 4 tracks of music playing behind me speaking in all the streams and videos, and I'm also tired of it too because I'm hearing it right now all the time. So part of what I want to do on that next channel is get to a point where I can make some music for both channels, you know, different music for, you know, backing tracks for the videos, so that there's sort of more appropriate music that sounds good and also isn't so repetitive because I just have the same 4 tracks playing. So that would be one motivation of working on stuff for that other channel, is like I can make sort of minimal music that is good for background tracks. Let's see. For System Crafters videos and streams. Scamako says, do a music production stream sometime. Yeah, I'm definitely going to do that on the other channel. That's going to be a lot of what we're doing. What I would like to do is try to build some component that I need for making stuff and then make something with it on the same stream so that there's always like a payoff at the end. Because I think that the only way that someone's going to actually stick around and keep watching the streams over time is if there's actually something happening. I can't just be, screwing around with code and not really get anywhere. People will leave. Minas Mazer says, no, I love Coriolis Effect. Yeah, well, the background tracks I have, I actually like them a lot. But I think that it's just been too repetitive over time. Gavin says, I made my intro, subscribe, and outro animation in Blender, and now you've inspired me to create my own music for the channel. Nice. That's cool, man. Like, I haven't gone through the trouble of making stuff, animations in Blender, because Blender is complicated beast. I actually use it for editing System Crafter's videos, but I don't really have to do much editing, so it's, it's not that complicated. But, yeah, it's pretty cool to make your own stuff for the channel. That's honestly, like, making videos. Part of the fun about making videos is all the other parts of producing the content, which is not just writing the stuff and talking into a camera. It's like, you get to decide how things look from start to finish. Whether you show a logo or not, how you do intros, how you do outros, how everything looks, how it sounds. If you're the kind of creative person that likes to deal with other media, then making videos is great because you can do a lot of different things at once, which is really cool. Pavel says, when EXWM crashes, why do I hear boss music? Yeah. Let's see. Pavel also says, I love this music, already got used to it. Yeah, I don't know. It's kind of weird to me if I try to record a video and I'm not hearing the music because it doesn't feel like System Crafters, so it's kind of weird. Farzan says, I like your videos, but they are long. Do you plan to make videos of 15 to 25 minute length? My more recent videos on the channel, many of them are within that length because I did start trying to make shorter videos. So that will be part of what I'm doing in the next year as well, is like, if I'm going to be making content on multiple channels, I need to be more judicious with my time, the time it takes to prepare for videos, the time it takes to record and edit videos. So I can't be making hour-long videos all the time. So yeah. Crazy Chicken says, I was watching your F# programming videos from 5 years ago. Big difference. Well, those were more involved in terms of the editing because I was doing a few different things there, especially with like the motion graphics and whatnot. A lot of that is something I would like to do again, but the tools for that in Linux are not as good as on macOS or Windows. And I kind of want to write my own tool for doing motion graphics, so that's part of what I'm going to be doing, to be able to add stuff like that on these videos and others that I make. So Gavin says, I also use Blender for video editing, so I figured I'd just keep learning. I also would like to keep learning it too because it's super powerful, especially because you can script it with Python. You can do quite a lot of things with it, but the interface is really complicated and harder to use, especially because they're trying to cram in many different types of programs into one. So motion graphics is something you could totally do in Blender, but it requires a lot of effort to do that. And I tried to do that, but I don't really have the time to spend to become an expert at making motion graphics in Blender. So I'm going to go the route of writing my own program to do the kinds of things that I want. But the upside of doing that is that it is, material for a channel for live streams and whatnot. So it makes sense. I like to do things myself. What can I say? Ella says, I hear Pokemon battle music in my head when I get Emacs issues. Gavin says, Blender is a beast almost more than Emacs. Yeah. It is more of a beast, for sure. Benoit says, you should write parens Blender. Well, that's sort of the idea, is that you would write, scheme code or Lisp code to describe what you want to be rendered. Astrocat says, I think they're doing lots to make the UI nicer, and 3.0 is even nicer. Yeah, Blender is a great looking application, and it does scale very nicely to higher DPIs. It's a great program. It's just, complicated. And to become a Blender expert, I would have to spend a lot of time learning it, and I'd rather do other things with my time, I think. Let's see, did I miss anything? Schemako says that would be awesome. It would be something that distinguishes the channel from the other production channels and other programming channels. Yeah, making all my own stuff definitely would be interesting. I feel like having that combination of coding plus audio and video creation is kind of unique. I mean, there's plenty of channels where people do like live coding of music, but it's a different thing to be writing your own tools for making the music and then trying to make music with it as you're going. So should be pretty cool. Alejandro says SVG animations, something like that. Yeah. Crazy Chicken says, instead of rewriting in Rust, let's rewrite Blender in Guile. No, I don't think you should do that. Let's see, what other things do I want to do to improve the quality of streams and videos? Multiple cameras. This is not something I've done yet, but when I move into a house, I'm looking for a house that has enough space for me to have a dedicated studio area where I can have like a background more than just, you know, having a green screen all the time. So I can have multiple cameras, one that has a green screen behind it and one that has like a real world background. So I can not be stuck in the screen the whole time. I can seem like a person and have like a room visible around me. So that is something I want to do to also improve some of the quality of what you see in the stream to make it look like it isn't just like one type of shot the whole time. One thing they tell you when you start looking into what makes people stay watching YouTube videos is for it not to just look like the same thing over and over the entire video. You kind of need to refresh the visual sense of things here and there to keep the viewer interested. So every now and then changing to a different perspective and jumping out of the screen a little bit might help to not lose people or make people be bored listening to just me, you know, ramble on about Emacs the whole time. So I think there's some value in changing that up a bit. But doing that also either requires having a good workflow for recording. So I'm switching between the different cameras while I'm recording, which is kind of complicated if you're trying to do a one-take video like I do in a lot of cases, or you have to integrate it into your editing workflow. And I don't really have much of one right now because I try not to spend time editing. So I have to find the right balance there because I don't want to spend a lot of time editing. Ellis says, the classic donut in Blender. Yeah, well, it's one of the easiest things to start with, that's for sure. AstroCat says, maybe a little animated GNU that runs across the screen. Well, I guess you could do things like that. See you, Vitaly. Thanks for coming. The NyanCat mode line plugin. Yeah, we do have that. That is an option in case you want something like that. Gon says, VR would be awesome walking among S expressions. Yeah, I want to have like a scene like in Hackers where you're flying through all of the fake computer stuff. Let's see, what else was I thinking about for all this? I know this is probably not really like the angle you're thinking of when I say I'm rewriting my configuration, but there's a lot of this stuff that actually does come as a part of configuring my system and also improving, you know, what we're doing here on the channel. Let's see, synchronizing activity between machines for streaming and recording. So Pavel says the YouTube auto moderation doesn't like the S expressions because of the SEX in there. Yeah, it's a little bit overzealous, I think. So I don't know if this one makes a whole lot of sense, but if I'm going to be using multiple machines to drive the stream, it might make sense that if I'm on the machine where I'm actually doing the work, that I wouldn't have to move my hands somewhere else to control the streaming machine. So there may be a something I need to do to communicate between machines. I mean, obviously, with OBS WebSocket, I can do communication between machines to control OBS from another machine, which I do sort of use OBS WebSocket right now to control OBS from Emacs. Like if I hit Super S right now, you can see that I have all of these stream commands where I can switch to different scenes. Like if I press W, it jumps to my webcam view so you can see me full screen. And if I use Super S, it goes back to screen view. So doing this across multiple machines might actually be useful, but that's something that's not so hard to do. But if I need to do other things that require me to talk between machines, then I might need to have some kind of setup for that. But that should be pretty interesting to experiment with that. Yeah, definitely use OBS WebSockets already. That was a big deal. There was a lot of effort I did probably in July, August timeframe to automate some of the aspects of the stream, and it's made my life way better. Because before then, I was doing a lot of things manually, and it really was a pain. Charles says maybe try virtual machines. It's VMs are good for doing things in a more controlled environment, but they also are a drain on performance. Ashra says, if I use Super Q, then stream suddenly stops. Yeah, well, that is definitely a risk. Definitely a risk. Or I can kill something that I don't want to kill, at least, because I do have Super Q set up to kill things. Let's see. Astercat says, I think most people use a little mixing box for multi-cams and screens. Well, yeah, so Ellis says the right thing. Most of them don't work on Linux. They use, a lot of people use Elgato products that you can have like a grid of buttons to press to change your scenes, but they don't have drivers for Linux in a lot of cases. And I've looked for ones that do support Linux. I haven't found one yet, but I don't really think I need something that complicated. I could just get like potentially like a MIDI controller and bind that to key presses, or get like a numpad, an external numpad, and use that even. So there's other things I could do that don't require me to have one of those fancy scene changers. There's so many of these things that people think they need for streaming and recording videos, like one of those Elgato devices and like the audio interface with the ability to turn on reverb or make your voice sound like a robot. I mean, you don't need all that crap. You just start recording videos and making streams, and then later, if you need them, get them. But if you're like the people that watch this channel, you can probably find a way to do it with code that's not very hard and not have to bother spending money on things you don't need. Ashra says, excuse me, new project, write drivers for unsorted devices in Linux. I mean, if I fully run out of things to do, I'll do that because it would be interesting. But I've got a lot of other things I would do before that, I think. Unsupported, yeah. If it was something interesting, I would definitely do it. I can't think of anything else for what I would do for improving the quality of streams and videos. I mean, all of you who are viewers of the content and the streams on this channel, is there anything about the quality of the videos or the streams, or maybe something that you see on other channels that would be interesting to try to do here? Definitely let me know in the chat, because oh God. Thank you, Astrocat, for deleting those spam messages. They made it through, unfortunately, to this one, but at least we got rid of the person. Elgato driver.el. Yeah. Hot S expressions and lists. Yeah, be careful typing those 6 letters next to each other, because you might get banned by YouTube. Gavin says, true, if you have a mic, you can do it, or go classic and just write your words in an Emacs buffer. Yeah, there are people who record videos by opening Notepad and typing the instructions in Notepad, which, you know, honestly, I respect those people because they're actually bothering to record a video even though they don't have a microphone, but they're going to share that information, by God. Start videos with "What's up, guys?" Yeah, I purposely do not use that phrase because it's just so grating on the nerves. When I hear somebody say "What's up, guys?" in a video, I just get annoyed. And hopefully nobody watching makes videos and says that, because I don't want you to feel bad that I say it. But it is sort of like one of those, I don't know, there are like linguistic tropes of content creation, and "What's up, guys?" is one of those things that people just say because that's what people say. And I think that, you know, we should be a little bit more aware of the words we use, just because you don't want to be like everybody else. You want to be a unique person, right? Vietnam flashbacks. Pavel says, I guess the YouTube AI isn't as good sometimes. It does actually catch a lot of stuff, but for some reason it got through. So Gavin says, I think I say that. Well, I don't mean to like criticize or anything. Ella says, what's up, YouTube? It's your boy, Davey Will. Now, that's more likely what I would say, just to be sarcastic, because it sounds so ridiculous. You know, there's certain things that you sort of like pick up as patterns from watching a lot of YouTube videos. Just the way that certain people do things, and you know, it's part of culture. You know, YouTube has a culture. There's a certain way that people make videos and they speak on YouTube, and it's just, you know, it's inevitable that people are going to pick it up. I apologize to the person, I believe that's Korean text. I can't read your name, but you say you made F# tutorials. Why not try Haskell? I mean, Haskell's cool and everything, but I'm not so interested in just studying functional languages anymore like I was doing before in the past. Crazy Chicken says, no need to try Haskell when Racket and Scheme exist. Well, I mean, Haskell has its own value as a strongly typed functional programming language, which, you know, takes things to the next level in terms of requiring immutability in operations. But yeah, I'm not really as interested in pure functional programming anymore unless it's like Clojure. Thomas says chapter markers in the videos is really good when watching later, not live. You can jump to the exact point of interest. Yeah, so that's actually, I want to have a different solution to that problem, which is possibly to edit summary videos for live streams so you don't have to go watch the whole 2-hour video, because I'm honestly impressed with how many people actually go watch the recording. I'm pretty sure people don't watch all the way through, but 2 hours is a long time to have to watch to pick up anything that's interesting that happens. So I don't know if it requires me to pay someone to help me edit the videos at some point in the future, which I might do, but you know, I'm not rich, so I can't really pay someone a lot to do that. But I want to do summary videos, especially on the other channel, because if I'm streaming multiple times per week and writing, you know, a lot of code and experimenting with things, I don't expect people to watch recordings of a 2 to 3 hour stream to catch up on all the stuff. So something I'll have to try to work into my workflow for weekly content production, which is basically doing edits of the live stream videos. Gavin says I'd watch more shorts personally. Honestly, that is something I'm thinking about investing more heavily in next year for Emacs, because there's a lot of things that aren't worth making an entire 10 to 15 minute video on that would be great as shorts, and it is a way to, you know, keep some content coming out every week. You know, every once in a while I can do a short video instead of having to do a much longer video. So yeah, I need to start doing more of that. Astrocat says like a highlights video. Yeah, exactly that. Michael Rose says, or a Clojure series. At some point, I would certainly consider doing that. I've actually been talking to somebody about Clojure-related video stuff, which may or may not happen. We'll see about that. But yeah, I would like to do some content on Clojure at some point, because I think it's a very interesting language in its own right. Fade says, in the Lisp vein, but on the functional side of things, Shin is a fascinating project. Yeah, Shin is really cool, but I haven't had time to look into it. Gavin says, do you enjoy editing? I do actually enjoy editing, but it's time consuming. And it is... like, if I'm going to try to make more content, I can't spend more time editing. So I need to find a way to shorten the time it takes to edit things, and also know exactly where I need to go for interesting stuff to pull out for a summary video. I mean, obviously I can automate some of that workflow by having code where I can just sort of like, you know, create timestamps for myself to go back and pull it out. But it still requires work on that front. So the more likely thing is at some point I would probably have to get someone to help me. Gon says, what about the Tuesday clips? I haven't been able to make those in a few weeks because things are so busy lately getting set up here in Greece. And I feel bad about that I haven't made videos, but it's been difficult to adjust to working remotely and having to do meetings in the evenings pretty much 4 or 5 days a week. and then like searching for houses all day during the week and dealing with other things around here like immigration stuff and whatnot. So it's going to be probably another couple weeks before I get back to making the Tuesday videos again. So when I do that, I will start making some of the normal videos, like, 15 to 20 minute videos or shorts. I want to do both for sure. Let's see. Ashra says, what program do you use for editing? I use either Blender or Kden Live. I was using Kden Live first, and as a video editor, it's great because it's really straightforward to use. But I started switching to Blender because it had more potential for motion graphics and a lot of other really cool stuff like 3D and whatnot. But I only do really simple stuff with that. I'm just doing like cuts at certain points and like fades between clips and like inserting the System Graphics logo at the beginning after I do like the little intro text. So it's not at all complicated, which is good. I mean, it doesn't require very much effort to produce a video now, but yeah. Gavin says, I feel the same. I don't like recording unless it's a stream, but I never have enough free time to when people would watch. Yeah. Let's see. Ella says, Eric Dallow hangs around the Discords. Would be great to pick his brain. About what? I'm interested to know what you are referring to. Let's see. Michael says, any plans to dig into customizing using Nixt? Yeah, at some point for sure. Oh, Clojure, Ellis says. Yeah, for sure. I would like to try to use Clojure LSP for sure. Nixt, I need to get to that. I have been avoiding it for no good reason other than just like every time I try it, I feel like it sort of goes against what I expect should happen using a browser inside of EXWM, because it basically replicates a lot of the same interaction metaphors. You kind of like have Emacs within Emacs, and it kind of feels weird. So I need to get back to it. Alex Dasamore says, should I watch both config rewrites? You should watch everything. Just every minute of content, just watch it. Or just let it play in the background so I get all the good analytics data. Let's see. Gavin says, do you use a stylus with Blender? I do not use a stylus. I should probably get one of those for sure. If you have like a video that you followed that shows how to use a stylus to speed up editing, I would be very interested to take a look at it, because I'm having a hard time thinking about how that would be helpful, but very interested. Zoe says, I feel like I should like Nixt more than I do. Well, Nixt is fantastic in terms of what it's trying to accomplish, which is basically making an Emacs-like web browser that's super hackable. But whenever you have the same usage paradigm in a program that you're using inside of EXWM, it's kind of painful. However, the way that I think that it would be very, very useful is if you are not using EXWM and you're using a normal window manager, like let's say DWM or i3, and you have Emacs that you're using, and you're also using Nixt as your main browser, because then you have some parity between the usage model between Emacs and the browser, and the key bindings aren't fighting, and you're not having to like switch between modalities in both of them. So I think that if you're not using EXWM, Nixt makes a ton of sense. But if you are using EXWM, it just sort of makes things a little bit more rough, in my opinion. But I have not spent enough time with it to try to smooth out the rough spots. So you can't really take my opinion as a fair conclusion, I suppose. Schemako says, I'm learning Clojure for purely mercenary reasons. It's currently the highest paid language in the world for developers. Yeah, if I was to try to use a particular language for contract work, which is probably something I'll try to do at some point in the future, I would definitely use Clojure, because the companies that are using Clojure for their products, they're looking for a kind of a skilled developer, I think, and they're willing to pay more because they know what they're getting. You can pay less developers more money to get a better quality output, because the people who are trying to use Clojure are typically the people who are using it because it's Clojure and not just because it's just some random language. Let's see. Zos says, I think the issue is I want the browser to stay out of the way. I kind of feel the same. That's the reason why I use Qt browser instead of EXWM, because it accomplishes that, though it is a little bit clunky sometimes. Let's see. Fade says I use Nix inside of Stump WM every day. Yeah, that would be a good place to use it for sure. Let's see. Gavin says a big thing is moving, cutting, and resizing tracks. Personally, I've thought about making a video on my editing process. If I get around to it, I'll post it in the Discord. Yeah, definitely let me know. I actually use the ThinkPad track point and sometimes a touchpad for editing videos. I don't even use a regular mouse. So if that tells you how insane I am when it comes to using Blender, then yeah. So Crazy Chicken says, functional programming is becoming the norm within imperative languages nowadays. Even Java has many beautiful aspects of functional programming, so I see why Clojure is big. Well, people are really sort of turning on to the ideas behind functional programming because for data processing, you can't be using objects in mutable state. You need to be able to like treat every input as just use whatever information you're given at that point in time, because if you have streams of data, you have to just take that. Now, obviously, that doesn't mean you can't have mutable state in a function that's sort of accumulating information or whatever, but it's better for data pipelines and also for a lot of things, honestly. Skiamako says, that's fair, but I have a long background in app support and operations types programming, bug fixing, and small upgrades to existing systems. So where the cutting edge is now, my job will be in 5 years. Yeah, true. Let's see, anything else interesting from my sort of ideas about redoing configuration? Yeah, so sort of to summarize, if I were to rewrite everything, which I do want to do, I would try to do it differently, not using org mode, using more normal source, try to find a balance between Geeks Home and using normal configuration files for programs. Also try to take some of my Emacs config, parcel it out into reusable components that are based on a core configuration that could be used by other people. And then try to bring other things that I normally do, like let's say programs like OBS or video or image editing, video editing, to a source level where those things can also be checked in and reused easily across systems. Because if you have programs that have complicated configuration files, they're very difficult to check into source control, OBS being an offender there. Benoit makes a good point. Not just for data processing, we are at the end of Moore's law, so doing parallel programs is way easier with functional programming. Yeah, whenever you have machines that have an insane number of cores, like with the Ryzen Threadripper processors, writing algorithms that work in parallel is a lot more important than writing or having a faster processor. So if you use functional programming, it's much easier to parcel out all that work across multiple processors and then put it back together at the end. Michael says, R uses these ideas heavily for data processing, immutability, currying, declarative, functional composition. That's cool. I haven't actually looked at R very much. Sorry for the coughing. I have a cold, and now it's catching up with me. The Christopher says, darn, I've missed basically all the stream. Yeah, we're going to finish up here in probably about 10 minutes, probably. R is a really nice language if you stick to its functional core. It's very flexible, though, so people write all kinds of madness in it as well. Yeah, I need to look into it a little bit. Ella says you can write madness in any language. Oh, yeah, that's for sure. Crazy Chicken says, I've been personally getting really into type theories, but it's always nice to use something dynamic like R. Well, you can definitely get things done a lot faster with something dynamic. But sometimes you can't beat the stability of static typing. And Christopher says, I guess I'll just start from the beginning. Well, not yet. I mean, wait until the stream's over, then you can start over. EBN says, what I started doing with Nix is package my custom functionality as custom Emacs packages. And also my Emacs Nix module enables different parts of my config. Yeah, that's sort of what I have in mind, is if you can, excuse me, if you can take different parts of your configuration and make them into their own sort of modules, then it's easier to pull them in as necessary, and you could potentially generate your init.el from Geek's Home or Nick's Home Manager completely by pulling in these modules that you've installed through packages. Gavin said, I would love more Lisp to support gradual typing. Yeah, I would also like that too. That's one thing I've been thinking about a lot over the years, is like being able to have a production level language that you can write applications with that has gradual typing. I think that typed closure may do some of this. It sounds like there's a Racket with gradual typing, which I have not looked at all, but I wouldn't be surprised at all that it has that, because Racket has like pretty much any kind of paradigm you could want. Benoit says there's a nice talk about a pseudo study of GitHub projects and identifying only 2% of dynamic languages bugs being due to lacking types, but at the same time way faster to develop. Yeah, I mean, if you are if you are a hacker, and by that I mean a person who likes to put things together yourself really quickly and experiment and do things interactively, then a dynamic language makes a lot more sense, because if you have to think about, you know, how you're going to set up your types and everything at first, then it slows you down. But if you are, you know, writing, you know, enterprise grade software, you kind of need types a lot of times because you're trying to enforce contracts between different components, and using the compiler to do that is a good way to make sure that it happens. Otherwise, with dynamic languages, you need a lot of unit tests and integration tests just to ensure that the basic functionality is working correctly. Gavin says typed Racket is basically an inspiration for TypeScript. I didn't know that. Ellis says it slows you down, but it helps you write a better system. Yeah, it's true. I mean, if you want stability and long-term quality, I think types make it better, because you know whenever you're going to break something. With dynamic languages, it's very easy to get into the case where you change the name of, like, let's say a key in a hash that you use, and then some other function uses the old name and doesn't get updated, and you have problems because there was no type checker that tells you that, oh, you're using a name that doesn't exist on this object or this map or whatever. Benoit says enterprise programs needs lots of tests regardless of types. Yeah, that's definitely true. Glenn says Julia language looks interesting, just need to find the time. Like the sound of closure somehow ended up using Scala. Well, Scala, you know, has similar inspirations, I think. Perl, why are we talking about Perl here? She says I just returned from work, almost missed this stream, sad life. Ah, well, you made it on time. So yeah, a lot of stuff that I want to try to do. And like I said, you know, kind of an ambitious project in mind for the other channel. I don't know how soon I'm actually going to start working on that, because I kind of need to be in a more stable situation, because I'm basically streaming out of my wife's parents' bedroom right now, and it's not a reliable setup. So I need to probably have, you know, my own office situation set up first, which is going to take some time because I need to find a house first. But yeah, at that point, I'll definitely start making videos on the other channel. I haven't got it set up yet, but as soon as I do, I'll let people know what it is. But like I said before, System Crafters is still happening at the same time, because I see my sort of video, I guess my channels that I'll have, or sort of outlets for the different areas that I'm interested in, and System Crafters scratches the itch of Linux, Emacs, Geeks, and system configuration in general. But you know, music and creativity and stuff don't really fit into this channel, so having a separate channel for that makes a lot of sense. Also, it gives a wider audience potentially the chance to check it out, because maybe they don't care about Emacs. There's no reason to have, you know, all that stuff mixed together on the same channel. Astros Cat says, ugh, moving though. Yeah, moving is not easy, especially whenever you are without a house for a while. Mr. CEO says, I've been in and out, but if you are going to invest time in C, please look at Nim. Nim is cool, but if I were to try to use something other than C, I'd probably use Zig, because Zig is pretty awesome. And I may still do that. We'll see. Kai says Emacs DAW. Well, that's basically the idea, is that I would have an engine for a music creation tool, and then I would be able to drive it from Emacs. Michael says, where would a video using something like Closure or Overtone and Closure or Quill fit? Probably on the other channel, but the other channel is more focused on building up tools from scratch. So I don't know that it would probably be more like this channel, but I don't know if people here would be as interested in that. Yeah, Zig has a lot of promise as a C replacement, in that it has a lot of the benefits of Rust without it being as complicated as Rust. It doesn't have like the whole borrow checker mentality, but it does have other tools that help you with memory management. So I'm interested in messing with that. I actually have experimented with that a bit. If you go look at my my GitHub profile, you'll see some previous experiments with Zig, but I am kind of like, let's say morbidly interested in using C for things. Benoit says there's already a new channel. It's planned. It's not created yet. I mean, well, okay, I did create it, but I'm not gonna send the link yet because I haven't got anything there yet. Maybe I should just do it, because if I'm talking about it now, people probably want to follow it. So let me see if I can grab that really quickly. I'll copy it into the Restream chat. Let's see if it lets me join. There we go. All right, so that's the channel link. The name may change, but that's where things will be whenever they happen. So if you want to subscribe to that channel, go ahead. Let me go. Great. Copy link. Is it going to give me the actual link, or is it going to put some garbage redirect link? Okay, good. Cool. Pavel says, oh, I can post links. Yeah, since you are a mod, you can post links. Ellis, did I make you a mod on the channel yet? Let me see. All of the, I wonder if I made Ashraz a mod. All of the Discord mods, I need to make you mods here as well. Because there's lots of funny people who like to come in and say weird stuff, and having other eyeballs on it is going to be helpful. Oh, there's Ashraz. Okay. I got you added to Ashraz. You are now, Ellis. Now you are, yeah. Okay, let's not go on a banning spree. Let's be nice. But if you see somebody saying something that obviously does not fit in the stream, that's very inappropriate, please do feel free to ban. So yeah, the idea for the other channel actually would be to do live streams. See ya, Ashraz. Live streams primarily, and then cut up highlight videos from those live streams for the people who can't watch a 3-hour stream recording. And probably not do the same kind of what you might call quote unquote educational content or like lecture videos like I do on this channel, because I don't have time for, you know, doing that kind of stuff for 2 channels. Yes, Benoit says I'm an IRC mod. Well, yeah, you deserve to get your wrench as well. Where are you? Oh, you're on Twitch. Actually, I need to go on Twitch and set you up there. Ah, that's a good question, Fade. I don't know what happened to that person. They didn't come back. So we never decided if Sherry was a bot or not. But there was a lot of evidence that pointed to the possibility that Sherry was a bot. So maybe because we had been talking about it, that person decided to stop coming to streams. So who knows? The person running the bot or the person there who is possibly not a bot. I don't know. We never came to a conclusion on that. T says, I haven't written any Lisp in a few weeks. The stream is motivating me to go back to hacking stuff in Emacs. You should. Astrocat says, is there a nicer Discord client for Linux? There is. If anybody remembers the name of that alternative client, please feel free to put it in here. But the thing about using alternative clients to Discord is that it's against the rules. And if for whatever reason they decide that you shouldn't be using it, they can ban your account. So I still use the main Discord client. Yeah, I need to go like load up Twitch. The thing about Twitch is that I really don't like their interface, and I just never open it up whenever I'm streaming. Let me see. No, we're not gonna listen to that right now. Here, Benoit says you can connect Discord with Matrix. Yeah, that's another one of those things where you could end up with trouble. Come on. Okay, mod Benoit. Okay, I got that. I'll mod Ellis here also. There we go. So yeah, bridging I think is against the terms of service as well. So they could ban people for doing that too. So that's why I've avoided it so far. Oh God, have to get a hot tub stream on Twitch? No thanks. I'm not gonna do any of the whole Twitch meta things. I heard they moved on to other things now as well that are equally awful. Benoit says it's basically like a restream bot. Yeah, you're right. I mean, it is a bot, but I don't know. Thanks, Willem. Happy to be in the EU. Let's see. Fade says, I usually use Twitch. This is the first time I've used the YouTube interface of the stream. Yeah, well, I personally prefer the YouTube interface for streaming because you can actually scroll back in time, which is kind of nice. See you, Minas Mazar. Ellis says, I wish I was welcome in the EU. Yeah, that's a whole thing. EBN says, I found out you used to work for Microsoft. Well, I don't know if I would say used to. What was I talking about? Oh, yeah. One day I would like to actually use something other than YouTube or Twitch, like maybe even have my own streaming server. But yeah, it's kind of hard to move away from the big platforms because there's so much like ability to draw people into the stream. So yeah. But it is aspirational to have my own sort of streaming server, so in my own site for the stream, so that you don't have to go to YouTube or Twitch, and we could have like IRC chat for the stream chat instead of having this monstrosity here. Float plane? I don't know what that is. Crazy Chicken says Odyssey allows streaming and such, but there's not too much in the way of viewers and UI. Yeah. Yeah, you can definitely stream on there, but I feel like Odyssey as a platform is interesting, but I think once the SEC started investigating them for the whole cryptocurrency thing, I feel like the value of the cryptocurrency went down, which also reduces the incentive for people to post videos there if the value of the currency just goes down. And Ella says you could stream to your own and then forward that to Twitch and YouTube. Yeah, definitely could do that. The thing is, like, I'm already doing the restream thing right now, and I have to use the restream chat box so I get all the chat from both services, and it's not perfect. I don't like this thing. So I would like to have a single chat that everybody could join, but at the same time, it's difficult to expect people to go to a different place entirely, like an IRC server. All right. I wonder if Matrix can bridge YouTube chat and Twitch. Probably, if you had a bot that could pull them through. But the problem with the YouTube chat is that they throttle it pretty hard. So you have to be a company that has the ability to get like a lot of tokens for the API to be able to poll frequently enough for it to be up to date. That's why sometimes you'll see like a big chunk of messages show up on the screen from YouTube, because I think they've been throttled, and then all of a sudden the chat catches up. And I kind of don't like that. I wish everything was more real time with the chat. It was like that when I was using the normal YouTube chat box, but now that we're pulling in Twitch as well, everything's slower. Yeah, Benoit says you can run your own cast. Yeah, that was the one I've been looking at. And Twitch is on IRC, yeah. YouTube chat is its own protocol. It's over WebSockets. And as you might know, they're probably pretty greedy with the tokens for that. Gon says it also censors when it thinks somebody wrote something rude. Yes. Yeah, it's man, I'll tell you what. I'm getting very, very tired of YouTube deleting over half of the comments that come in on my videos. I'll see a notification from the YouTube Studio app that a comment came in, and I'll go to read the comment, and it's already been deleted. I don't get any say in what comments stay on the channel. And so many of the comments that actually get deleted are legitimate comments, people asking a question or talking about something. Because we're talking about technical stuff, to any kind of technical words seem to trigger their detection. They just delete everything immediately, especially if someone posts a link in the comments. So I'm really tired of it, man. I like YouTube as a platform for discoverability, like people being able to find your channel and stuff. But as far as like interacting with people and seeing comments and leaving comments on videos, it's completely BS. Yeah, I know. Like, they're basically removing the incentive to write comments on videos, because if nobody sees them, what's the point of even having written the content to begin with? There's certain people like Alejandro here who write comments, and pretty much every single time they get deleted. So I'm very tired of that. I don't know what to say about that. Ella says, it seems like we need to make our own hacker-friendly streaming platform. Yeah, well, I mean, PeerTube, I think, is an option for that. I may have to have a PeerTube site at some point. I think they also have, or if they don't already have a streaming capability, I think they're getting one. So it might be something I have to do. Yeah, if you write S expression, I think it's fine. But if you write other stuff, then it may not be so fine. Like if you don't put the dash in the S expression, it might not like it too much. So yeah, anyway, I think we're a little bit over time now. Try to tell someone how to pronounce S expression, yeah. So thank you so much, everybody, for coming today. I really appreciate the interaction and the feedback. I know there wasn't really much content today per se, as far as like, you know, something interesting to talk about, but I think that we had a good time. So that was great for me, at least. And I'll keep you posted on the project that I mentioned as it comes online. Like I said, it's probably going to be some time because I can't really spend time on that yet. But it may just turn out that I get bored enough that I just start doing it anyway. So I'll let you know before the first stream. I'll probably do like an introductory video on the channel before I do a first stream on the channel. So if you subscribe to that Flux Harmonic channel that I post as a link, then you may see that video show up in your feed at some point. But as always, YouTube is not very good about letting you know about things until later. So who knows? But I'll be talking about it in the future, since I think some people who watch this channel probably will also be interested in the programming aspects on the other channel. So, all right. So once again, thanks everybody for being here today. I hope you all have a great weekend. Don't forget about the 20% discount on the stuff in the System Crafter store. That's going to be going on until next Friday, so you've got all of next week to be able to grab something there if you want to. And if you don't want to, then maybe when I make some new stuff for the store, you'll be more interested in that, because I know that, you know, just buying a logo t-shirt isn't the most interesting thing in the world. Alejandro says, what about recording workflow? Yeah, I'll have to do that too. So anyway, thanks so much for being here, everybody, and we'll see you next time. Happy hacking. Let me use my little key binding here to do the thanks for watching screen. See ya.